WCBS News Time 11:11. In March of last year, Kyle McMorrow, the afternoon drive editor at our sister station, 1010 Winds, suffered a stroke. He was just 36, healthy, active. What in the world had happened, and how did he recover so quickly? Kyle joined us on Newsline today, and we started by having him describe the morning when he noticed symptoms. Take us back to that morning. You're in the newsroom. You start to notice that you're feeling a little bit different, right?
Yeah. I had this really bad neck pain, and I couldn't walk a straight line in the newsroom. I was trying to sort of navigate between the desks, and I was having a hard time. So, I said, something's not right. I'm not sick, but something's wrong. And I ended up going to the subway, of all places, to try and just go to the doctor, till I called my girlfriend, and she's like, no, you need to go to the hospital. And my journey to getting to the hospital was trying to find a cab, which I couldn't. Of course, in New York City, the one
Classic New York, right?
Classic New York, couldn't get a cab, couldn't navigate my phone for some reason to get an Uber. Just everything was happening all at once, and yet I still couldn't understand what exactly it was.
Yeah, but she was insistent, right? She was like, no, you're not going to the doctor. You're going to the ER.
Yeah, she was like, you're slurring your speech, and you need to go to the hospital. Like, you need to get to the ER right now. And by that point, I was having a hard time even just standing. So getting to that cab was really a miracle.
But then you got to the hospital. You get into the hospital. Did they take you right away? Did they know right away that something major was going on?
Yeah, so they wheeled me in the wheelchair because I couldn't stand, and it was really bad. And as soon as they looked at me, they were sort of like, okay, this guy's having a stroke. We need to bring him in right now.
My gosh. So here you are. You're 36 years old. I know you. I've worked with you, always in good health, always physically fit. And you had a massive stroke. So tell us, then you're at the hospital, right? They tell you that this happened. What exactly did they say happened to you? Why the stroke?
So they didn't identify the cause right away. I don't think they really knew. My brain was bleeding so much that it was hard to get a clear picture when they were trying to do scans as to what exactly it was. They eventually identified that I had this thing called a cavernous malformation, which is really just an irregular blood vessel that happened to burst in my brainstem. So when that happened and all the bleeding happened, it just caused a cascade of effects throughout my whole body in terms of numbness, not being able to stand, my vision was blurry. And these are all signs really that, you could be having a stroke. These are the things you got to look out for.
Right. But up until then, there was nothing, no strange pains or none of the symptoms that you experienced that fateful morning, right? I mean, you felt fine.
Yeah, I was fine. I was actually shopping the day before after work, and I just woke up with this neck pain, and it all happened really within 5-6 hours, just all of the symptoms at once.
So then you had this massive stroke, you're hospitalized. What could you no longer do? What was your state?
I basically could do nothing. Even talking on the phone to relay that I was alive to people was hard to do. Speaking, swallowing, I couldn't swallow solid food. I had to be on a liquid diet. My body was numb pretty much all over, double vision. They were checking to make sure that I could even respond to simple commands because they didn't know the state that I was really the next day. So I started what I felt like was from square one because I couldn't do anything.
Right. And then you were faced with a choice. I feel like we talked in the time after when you were good enough to speak again, but then you were faced with a big decision. You had to perhaps undergo this surgery that would essentially prevent this from ever happening again. Is that right?
Yeah. Basically, at first they couldn't go in and do surgery. They didn't feel comfortable because of where the irregular blood vessel was, which was on my brainstem. Thankfully, it had shifted in a way to where they felt they could go in. So they asked me, they said, do you want to have surgery or not? But if you want to do it, you better make up your mind soon because it could move again. And so when you hear the word surgery, you kind of like maybe tense up. For me, it was relief because as you said, this nothing's guaranteed, I guess, in life, but this really put a stamp on putting this in my rear view mirror because the surgery would essentially take away the issue.
Right. You didn't want to have to live with that fear of this happening all over again. So you had the surgery and then you continued with rehabilitation. And there was a time, though, right, when you were trying to get healthy again, where you were really seeking inspiration?
Oh, yeah. I spent a lot of time Googling just various cases, some that were similar to mine, just to see if anybody made it out the other side. That's all I wanted. I wanted to know someone made it so that I could feel like, all right, well, if that person did it, I can do it too. So I spent hours and days just researching, and I said to myself in that moment, if I ever do get out of this, one of the things I want to do is spread awareness and make people aware that you could be going through something very similar, but there is a chance to make it out.
There is hope. And make it out, in your case, in a pretty timely fashion, right? I mean, what, all in a year and change?
Yeah, I honestly, I'm very lucky, very blessed, because I fell into the hands of probably the best place to be in New York Presbyterian, with the best doctor, Dr. Stieg, who performed the surgery. They gave me my life back, in a sense. And within 6 months, really, I went from having a stroke to being back at work. I had the stroke. I was in the hospital for a while. I did a lot of rehab, speech therapy, occupational therapy, had the surgery, did the whole recovery time, and then by mid to late July, I was back at work.
Unbelievable. Best doctor, best girlfriend who was smart and said, get to the hospital. And you two celebrated
Very
recently
lucky.
with a hike.
Yeah, so for the 1 year sort of celebration, I don't know if you can call it a celebration, but we celebrated sort of life. She surprised us with a trip to Puerto Rico, where we did a hike in a rainforest, which was very grueling, but it was also a test for myself to see, like, can I do it? And I wanted to prove to myself that I could. And I did. I made it through. So we made it through the hike.
Unbelievable. Okay, Kyle. So now, if anybody is listening to this, if anybody has gone through this or knows somebody, they can Google Kyle McMorrow and get your story to inspire them.
Yeah, and I'm very honored by that. I'm very happy because, like I said, the one thing I really wanted to do was be that story for somebody else so that they have hope to cling on to.
Well, you sure are. We're so happy to have you back in the newsroom, and thank you so much for coming on Newsline.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you.